Part 27. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Jeon. Chapter 261. Ministry of Public Security, Office of the Minister. In view of Comrade Lin Xian's outstanding work performance, with the approval of his superiors, he has been promoted to the deputy position at the division level with exceptional benefits. The old man looked at Lin Xian in front of him quietly. Congratulations. A 22-year-old deputy? In the Dragon Kingdom, don't talk about being rare. In this day and age, it is almost impossible. Some people even stand still as a clerk. Some people spend a lifetime as a section clerk. A serious subject is almost the limit of ordinary people. At the director level, it can be said that you have completely passed the bottom threshold and entered middle management. The little guy in front of me only took less than half a year. Almost completed the journey of most people's lifetime. The 22-year-old director can simply be described as appalling. But when it comes to Lin Xian, it seems to be normal again. A first-class police merit medal was held in the hands of the old man and he personally wore it on Lin Xian's chest. This is the 7th time Lin Xian has won first-class police merit. Counting down the number of people who have received first-class police honors more than 7 times since the founding of the Dragon Kingdom, there are only a handful of them. But it took others a lifetime to get it, but it only took Lin Xian half a year. The old man raised his eyes slightly, with relief in his eyes and a gentle tone. Come on. Lin Xian walked out of the minister's office, still confused. I have thought about making meritorious deeds and making great achievements. I also thought about what rewards my superiors would give me. But what he looks forward to most is the honorary title. A first-class hero model. It can be said that that title represents the highest honor of the police. The king of police. Don't say it's greedy, and don't say he already has a second level. As long as it's human. Don't you want to climb to the top of the mountain, sit on the throne, and see all the smaller mountains? But the moment he walked out of the minister's office, Lin Xian figured it out. It's not that the superiors don't give it, it's that they can't give it. If it is given, his credit will come to an end. Such as the title of Duke, the pillar of the country, the title of King. They have all reached this position, with no seals and no rewards. If you perform meritorious service in the future, what will you be granted or rewarded? Therefore, the final reward will never be given to him unless absolutely necessary. Only other rewards can be used to make up for the credit. A 22-year-old senior officer is indeed scary. However, there are 5 administrative levels: state, department, section, and 27 sub-levels. A deputy director is only between level 20 and level 14. It can only be considered as barely touching the threshold of the middle level. Does it matter? It is normal for some department-level officials to stay put for the rest of their lives. But things like merit are different. Once you've given it, it's hard to give it anymore. The bosses are really good at playing without ranking based on meritorious deeds. Lin Xian smiled. As for the first-level hero model, I'll definitely get it, I said it. Night. Sci-Fi. In front of a display cabinet in the study. The entire wooden cabinet is carefully made of Hainan Huanghuali wood. The color is as warm as amber and exudes a natural fragrance. 9 metal boxes are placed on the cabinet's compartment. And the medal on top of the box. 7 first-class police medals are placed on the second floor. 2 honorary titles are placed on the first floor. The 3 siblings were all looking at the medals with happy smiles on their faces. Give it to someone else. Mu Qingtian hugged her brother's waist, smiling like a little woman and coquettishly. It's all yours. Lin Xian pinched her fair cheeks and gave a standard answer. 2 sisters, which one do you dare to favor? You don't dare to do either. Snored. Mu Qingtian snorted and curled her lips. How cunning. Lin Xian and Mu Qingjian looked at each other and smiled silently. Being promoted and awarded a medal is a happy event. At night, Lin Xian entertained Lu Yan and her colleagues at home. Everyone was congratulating and pouring wine. The meal lasted until 10 p.m. Even with his abnormal physique, Lin Xian was still a little drunk. After sending his colleagues away, Lin Xian sat on the sofa like a young master. Mu Qingjian was baking cigars for him. Mu Qingtian was beating his legs. Lin Xian squinted his eyes and grinned stupidly. The whole person was a little confused, and he smiled and murmured, "At a young age, I am already a deputy virgin, and I have reached the pinnacle of my life. When I become good, I even scare myself. Ha ha." The two sisters looked at him with smiles, as if looking at the little fool. But more than anything, I am happy. Without relying on family members, one can be promoted to deputy director at the age of 22 through merit. This kind of thing is indeed something to be proud of. It can even last a lifetime. Even though he is now in a high and powerful position, his younger brother is still a young man after all. What's wrong with being so proud? Looking at Lin Xian's innocent look, the two sisters nestled in his arms. Smirk along with him. The world becomes brilliant and grand at this moment. We met unexpectedly. Everything with us has a beginning and an end. Don't you think so, our big boy? September. The sky is blue and the sun shines through the clouds. Warm but not hot, as if the earth is covered with a golden veil. Like a gentle painter, she uses her delicate brush to outline a beautiful picture. A month passed in the blink of an eye. I work during the day and stay at home with my sister at night. During the break, I took my sisters to accompany my parents. Lin Xian's little life was not to mention how nourishing it was. I thought about meeting my future father-in-law tomorrow. His mood changed. I was timid, looking forward to it, and a little nervous. After all, my father-in-law's career was before marriage. It seems that he is not very friendly to every son-in-law. During that period, all future sons-in-law would be treated as Huang Mao. There will also be a war between Lao Deng and Huang Mao. The sun sets. When Lin Xian returned home, he and his sisters were thinking about what gifts to bring to meet his future father-in-law tomorrow. An unexpected call came to his mobile phone. Glancing at the caller, Lin Xian's eyelids twitched. Takeo, July. No, what is this guy calling me? Some people can be friends and brothers, but it is best not to see them for a lifetime. Because if a friend like that kind of brother calls you, nothing good will happen. Is something wrong? After answering the phone call, Lin Xian spoke in a low tone. Can't I call you if you have nothing to do? July's words were teasing, do I miss you? Thank you. Lin Xian chuckled, what, are you going to pick up the soap? July. What does it mean? Maybe when he understands this idea, there will definitely be thousands of grass and mud horses running through his heart. If nothing happens, I will die, Lin Xian said seriously. Do not. July was anxious, I have something like this that I want to ask you. Then just say it. Lin Xian insulted him, can you please stop acting like a bitch? Things are a bit complicated. I actually want to ask you something. July took a deep breath, do you believe there is something supernatural in this world? Lin Xian, Omicron. No, why do these words sound familiar? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun. Chapter 262. Should I go MMP first or MPP later? Lin Xian has a toothache. I still remember someone once asked him. Do you believe in foreseeing the future? Do you believe there are ghosts in the world? No. And asked me if I believe in the supernatural? Believe it or not. Did I spit it in your face? Brother Joe, are you very free? Lin Xian was not interested, if you are very free, You can interact more with your sister-in-law, wouldn't it be nice? Jolai was silent for a long time. You don't even believe it, right? Nonsense. Lin Xian, who was holding up his mobile phone, rolled his eyes. I've seen people play predicting the future, and I've seen people play ghosts, but in the end they were all fake. Do you think I believe in the supernatural? It's precisely because you have experience in this field that I made this call to you. Jolai's voice was solemn. To be honest, I don't believe it either, so please help me take a look. What happened? Lin Xian's expression changed. You should know the strength of the warriors, right? Jolai sighed again. In the face of that kind of power, a soldier died without a trace, and his death was so mysterious that even the medical examiner could not find out the cause of death. Are you kidding? Lin Xian was stunned. He had an idea of how strong the soldiers were. Even a fool like him is very afraid of soldiers. Ordinary people want to kill a soldier quietly without leaving any trace. Absolutely impossible. Let's meet. Jolai smiled bitterly. I'm at your door. 3 minutes later. Saihewan front yard living room. In the end, what happened? Lin Xian looked directly at Jolai in front of him. Don't tell me that a supernatural event really happened. He didn't believe it anyway. Even if you tell me, Dacian won't believe it. After seeing too many weird cases, let him believe in ghosts and gods. Isn't this funny? We found a person. This person said that he traveled through time and traveled to ancient times. Jolai's expression was extremely weird. He also said that he lived in a small village with a group of ancient people, living like primitive people, farming, hunting, and personally hunting wild wolves, bears, and tigers. Lin Xian. He knew Jolai was not joking with him. Just because it's not a joke. Everyone else was dumbfounded. Time travel, whoever listens will not be confused. This bloody plot that only appears in novels and movies, you actually tell me that it happens in reality, don't you think it's nonsense? Even more nonsense. Wild wolves, bears, tigers, hunting. Can you please stop making trouble? Do you know that each of these animals in the Dragon Kingdom may be recorded and they are all nationally protected animals? Hunting for your sister. Here comes the weirdest thing. Living in a village with a bunch of ancient people? Still living like primitive people? Can you still make some nonsense? No movie would dare to act like this. Do you think I'm joking? Are you trying to say that someone might be acting to deceive him? Yes, we thought so at the beginning, and we still think so even now. We feel that someone is playing this person. Jolai's expression was complicated, but if I tell you, that person lived in the so-called ancient times for 5 years, and he also explored that world for 5 years, and found no flaws, and confirmed that those people were all ancient people, what do you think? What do I think? Lin Xian was happy. I sympathize with him, but I just can't hold back my laughter. He still didn't believe it. Jolai said word for word, this person is a policeman. Lin Xian's expression froze. If that's not enough for you. Jolai said in a heavy tone, the country spent some manpower, material resources, and money, and researched for half a year. 5 scientific researchers disappeared, and a soldier also disappeared mysteriously due to the investigation. When they were finally found, they all turned into the body is dead and the cause of death cannot be found. Don't you still believe it? Lin Xian's entire face became dull. Many supernatural events spread among the people echoed in his mind. Gate of Hell incident, dog can speak human language incident, cat-faced old lady incident, wild cat mouth dragon incident, Shenangjia water monster incident, village disappearance incident, strange car incident in the sky. These incidents have not been officially confirmed. But many people among the public have heard of it. Some people say, believe in science. Some people also say, how old is the earth, but how old is science? Others said, since the advent of cameras, there have been fewer and fewer supernatural incidents. Have you found such a common phenomenon? Bizarre and supernatural phenomena almost always occur in some remote areas, even in places where there are few human traces, and very few people see them. Why don't these supernatural phenomena appear in crowded places? Why are supernatural beings afraid of being seen? You are so supernatural and you are still afraid of humans? But Zhou Lai's words completely overturned Lin Xian's past understanding. It shattered the blind spot of knowledge and made him feel a little suffocated. Even the state took action and investigated for half a year. Isn't it scary? A soldier can disappear without a trace and die when found. Isn't it scary? You want me to investigate? Lin Xian looked at Zhou Lai. I think you're pretty lucky. Zhou Lai smiled and said, maybe we can find something. Not only am I lucky, but I also have good athlete's foot. Lin Xian was happy. Don't be ridiculous, just tell me. The superiors are prepared to study it vigorously. Zhou Lai looked serious, but before that, we need to find out the truth. Is it worth the country's time and money to study it? Do you understand what I mean? Got it, Lin Xian nodded. Like, if an alien flying saucer is suddenly discovered, do you study it? It's okay if you don't do research, as long as you do research. Bring it on. Manpower, material resources, and money all require massive investment. Everyone who does scientific research knows this. Just do an experiment. Hundreds of thousands, millions, tens of millions, billions, billions, tens of billions. That's all a matter of minutes, isn't it? The country really needs to start researching that supernatural time travel. The resources and manpower consumed will be quite terrifying. Someone said. Isn't this nonsense? Do you really believe in time travel? Here comes the fun question. People in ancient times did not believe that people could fly into the sky or that people could travel thousands of miles. What now? Can people fly into the sky? Can sound be transmitted thousands of miles? Some things are all researched. Without research, mankind will never make progress. If the research is successful, humans will develop it. For example, the moon is ours now. So, if time travel can be developed, is it possible to change history and even the earth belongs to us? A big figure in the scientific community once said this. Science is all about making random thoughts and turning random thoughts into reality. Does Lin Xian believe it? He. I believe in a bitch, I'm not a scientist. Lin Xian sneered. Sometimes I don't even believe what I see with my own eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 263. Still don't believe it? Zhou Lai was amused by his little brother's stubborn expression. If I say I'm mute, I usually speak in disguise. Lin Xian looked at Zhou Lai, do you believe it or not? I really want to hit him, Zhou Lai rolled his eyes. If he couldn't beat him, Zhou Lai would definitely use force to subdue the suspected mental patient in front of him without saying a word. Actually, there's no point in asking me for this kind of thing. Lin Xian bared his teeth, checking supernatural things is not my specialty. Then what's your specialty? Zhou Lai smiled bitterly. My specialty? Lin Xian looked at his waist, his eyes self-evident. Holy shit, Zhou Lai almost wanted to pull out his gun. Stop making trouble, I'm almost dying of anxiety. Contact the Ministry of Public Security. Lin Xian looked at his brother. Last time I left with you, the bosses above me were very dissatisfied. This is no joke. The last time she helped Special Branch deal with an incident, Lu Yan said, you are a police officer, so you have gone too far. It's not a good thing to meddle in some things. The people above didn't say anything, but you have to be aware of it. Little things. How could Jolie not understand the meaning of his little brother's words, "I can't treat you so badly as the Ministry of Public Security"? How dare you say that? Lin Xian smiled. However, Takeo is indeed qualified to say such things. By the way, Brother Joe, what is your position in Takeo? Lin Xian asked curiously. Jolie was silent for a while and said, "Chief of the Operations Section." If it had been anyone else, he would certainly not have answered. His job is to do everything. To be exaggerated, it's all classified. Lin Xian's expression changed slightly. The Action Section, that is the strongest combat capability of Special Section. Jolie took out his mobile phone and made a call. Same as last time. Through his superiors, he contacted the Ministry of Public Security. Not long after, Lin Xian's cell phone rang. "Are you starting to neglect your duties again?" The words of the Ministry of Public Security carrying the tripod came. "Of course not." Lin Xian's expression froze, feeling as if he was a young boy caught red-handed by his boss. "Isn't this serving the people and the country? Then do your best to serve the country and don't disgrace our Ministry of Public Security." The old man smiled. "Promise to complete the task." Lin Xian also smiled. "But I was sighing in my heart, this skill is really good." With the word "we," the relationship has become closer. If a big boss can say this to you, it means that everyone is one of the same people. Even if he wanted to leave the Ministry of Public Security in the future, he would be embarrassed. There is no one who can become a leader in every field. End the call. Lin Xian made another call to the team members. "Come and live." The Special Criminal Case Task Force has been so idle lately that it's almost growing hairy. It's time for everyone to move around. After Wang Meng and others arrived at the courtyard. Hear the supernatural events narrated by Lin Xian. Every expression is extremely calm. Jolie beside him couldn't control himself anymore. "No, what's going on with these people? I told you, we've even seen the future and ghosts." Lin Xian smiled and said, "I've seen too much, and I don't believe in anything supernatural at all." The team members laughed. Indeed so. From Lin Xian came to the heavy Special Criminal Case Task Force. What bizarre cases haven't they seen? I've even seen ghosts with my own eyes. In the end it was all fake. What kind of supernatural talk is this? Don't try to fool our eyes that can see through everything. GG. Result. 6 hours later. When the entire Special Criminal Case Task Force arrived in a city. Then everyone finished reading a top-secret investigation report. Not calm anymore. City T, Province J. Also known as the Mountain City of the North Country. A city across the Yalu River from Bibang Kingdom. At this time, everyone is in a place called Holy Water Town. Looking at a holy water temple. Top secret investigative report. Time, September 3, 2015. Location, Shengshui Town. What happened? A person who had been missing for 5 years appeared out of thin air in the holy water temple. Character, Yu Huan, male, 27 years old, from T City, police officer from XX police station, before disappearance, missing since August 21, 2010. Incident, after investigation by the local public security department, it was suspected that Yu Huan was in an abnormal mental state and was talking nonsense, saying that he traveled to ancient times and lived with a group of ancient people for 5 years. Physical examination, confirmed that Yu Huan is physically and mentally normal, and has passed the polygraph. No one would believe in time travel. However, after interrogation and polygraph testing, when you find out that this person is not only healthy and mentally sound, but also has no trace of lying. Are you confused? Is it true that someone can inexplicably travel back to ancient times, and then inexplicably travel back to modern times. The police officers in charge of handling the case were stunned. I had to bite the bullet and report it again. It's no surprise that the people above gave the police officers below a lot of criticism and education, believe in science. But the policemen below were almost crying, yes, we believe in science, but what is happening in front of us is really unscientific. Otherwise, would you send someone over to take a look? Someone came down from the top. When I checked, I was confused. The result is the same. This Yu Huan is very normal. He didn't lie, he was mentally sound, and he passed a lie detector test. The facts are here, do you believe it? This time it was taken seriously and reported to the provincial department again. At this level, it will be paid attention to by some special departments. For example, Special Operations Department. At first, the people in the Special Operations Department only felt that there was something unusual, so they came to check and confirm. After checking and checking, the more they checked, the more wrong they found. And the superiors were alarmed, and 2 more Special Operation personnel were directly dispatched to check. As a result, a Special Operation personnel suddenly disappeared. He disappeared for a whole day. Then, he appeared out of thin air in Shengshui Temple. Just like the missing suspect Yu Huan that year. But the difference is that this special operation personnel died. The cause of death was organ failure. But after the autopsy, it was not found out what caused the organ failure. Until then, the Special Operations Department had found something wrong. Not only did they take over the investigation, but they also reported it at the same time, and dispatched some experts to come. A terrible thing happened. 5 experts were investigating Shengshui Temple to check whether there were any supernatural phenomena. Disappeared. A day later, the bodies of the 5 experts were found. Later, 2 days ago, a soldier from the Special Operations Department disappeared again and died. This happened in the past 6 months. There were 3 strange disappearances. And all of them died, which scared everyone. But no matter the local police, experts, or the Special Operations Department, the truth was not found out. As the head of the Operations Department, Zhou Lai wanted to kill his subordinates when they died. Can he accept it? Then he thought of Lin Xian, his little brother. When Lin Xian and others finished reading the investigation report, they were not calm either. Is there really supernatural in this world? No. How did living people disappear and appear out of thin air? There is no clue. Is this possible? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 264. Morning, T-City, a certain district. The sun shines through the sparse clouds and shines on every building. Smoke rises, and every household begins to prepare breakfast. The whole community is filled with a peaceful and warm atmosphere. It seems like a harmonious and beautiful little world. Lin Xian is standing in a corner of the community, looking at a middle-aged man in the community. Suspect Yu Huan. He is standing in the community, his eyes are empty and confused, revealing deep hesitation. His shoulders droop, and the whole person looks decadent, as if he was defeated by something. The steps are heavy and slow, and every step seems listless. Is it the sequelae of crossing? Lin Xian took out a cigarette and lit it. He has been observing Yu Huan for half an hour. No flaws were found. His perception is also telling himself, there is nothing wrong with this person. But if there is no problem, then things will be terrible. Crossing, isn't it abstract? What Lin Xian finds most interesting is that Yu Huan found him. The other party slowly approached, stretched out his hand and smiled, "Give me a cigarette." "Oh, interesting," Lin Xian handed over the cigarette box. Yu Huan, who took the cigarette box, was stunned. He had never seen it before. But he didn't care too much. In today's world, there are too many things he has not seen. In 5 years, he has been completely out of touch with this world. Lin Xian was looking at Yu Huan's hand. His eyelids twitched twice. The skin of the palm was rough and thick, covered with traces left by the years. In the palm, wrinkles crisscrossed like gullies, recording the baptism of wind, frost, rain, and snow and the hardships of labor. Such a pair of hands is rare even for those who often work in the fields. It was because of seeing these hands that Lin Xian felt uneasy. He thought of the records in the investigation report. Yu Huan said that after he traveled through ancient times, he did farm work and hunted. It matches. Are you a policeman? Or the relevant department? Yu Huan exhaled a puff of smoke. You still don't believe what I said. You used to be a policeman. Lin Xian asked back, if it were you, would you believe it? Yes. Yu Huan's tone was a little aggrieved and helpless. If it were me, I would definitely not believe it. But I believe your 5 years of experience. Lin Xian interrupted him. Huh. Yu Huan was stunned and stared at the handsome young man in front of him. Lin Xian did not explain. He pointed to his hands and then to Yu Huan's chest. There were several scars on Yu Huan's chest exposed outside his clothes. Claw marks from wild animals. Looking at the marks, it seems to be cat claws, but thicker than cat claws. But it's not a tiger, it should be some kind of cat. Yu Huan looked down at his chest, with a trace of fear in his eyes. That's a big cat, probably a lynx, or something, nearly 1.5 meters long, half a meter high, it almost ate me. Lin Xian thought about it and nodded. The weight range of lynx is 18-32 kilograms, body length is 90-130 centimeters, and tail length is 11-24 centimeters. It should be. But the problem is that this thing rarely appears in the range of human activities. In Dragon Country, it is only found in some special areas. What other wild animals have you encountered? Lin Xian asked. Too many. Yu Huan looked terrified. Tigers, bears, wolves, and some strange things. Lin Xian's mouth twitched. Where you are, is the area very large? Very large. Yu Huan nodded. Except for that small village, there are mountains all around, mountains, jungles, and swamps that stretch as far as the eye can see. Something is wrong. Lin Xian's brain is spinning wildly. There are many places with mountains and forests in the Dragon Country area. But there are not many places with swamps. What's more, there are tigers, bears, wolves, lynxes in this area. Very strange. It is impossible for all these animals to live in that area. Why do you say that? Animals are not people, and their territorial awareness is terrible. For example, there are tigers in an area. In this area, you can't see bears and wolves at all. The biggest problem. A village lives in such an area. Are you kidding? To put it bluntly. In the era when there were no firearms and only cold weapons were relied on. Only 1 or 2 adult tigers were needed to slaughter the village. A tiger among sheep can not only describe sheep, but also people. This is not a joke. So the appearance of this village is a bit unreasonable. How many people are there in the village? Lin Xian asked with a smile. 7 households, 24 people. Yu Huan counted them all, 6 children, more than a dozen adults, and 2 elderly people. In 5 years, you didn't find anything abnormal. Lin Xian couldn't understand. No. Yu Huan's expression gradually became painful and panicked. It was because I didn't find anything unusual that I was afraid. I tried desperately to find something unusual, but I found that they were all too normal. They were so normal that it was scary. They were all normal, ancient people. Lin Xian got goosebumps. I'm not lying. How is it possible? How could there be ancient people? Could it be a time travel? No, there is no point in asking this. Lin Xian looked directly at Yu Huan. Tell me all the experiences since you traveled through time and time again. I've said it many times. Yu Huan smiled bitterly. What's the point of saying it again? He told the police, the special forces, and the experts. No one believed him. And he didn't want to recall the painful experience of those 5 years. It can easily drive a person crazy. That kind of pain is incomprehensible to normal people. That's right, we don't believe it, and it's impossible. Lin Xian looked into his eyes with a serious expression. Why? Yu Huan was stunned. Because you are a modern person, to ancient people, you are a god of death. Lin Xian pointed at his body. Do you know how many viruses a modern person has? If a modern person returns to ancient times, he will be a living biological weapon, a living plague, which can easily wipe out a village or even a city. He was not kidding. In today's era, every human has dozens of viruses. It's all thanks to the amazing immunity of modern people. But if you go back to ancient times, it must be biological weapons. To exaggerate, the viruses and bacteria in your body are likely to wipe out a country. Anyone who understands this truth. If you read those time travel fiction novels again, you will laugh instantly. Are you traveling through time? You are going back to ancient times to massacre the city. This is why Lin Xian, the special forces, and the experts don't believe that Yu Huan traveled through time. But the problem is that Yu Huan didn't lie. Then the terrible question comes. If it's not time travel, where was he in the past 5 years? What about those wild animals? And who were those ancient people? Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 265. Yu Huan was dumbfounded on the spot. 5 years ago, he was a policeman. Anyone who can be a police officer is not a fool. Most ordinary people would not think that viruses exist in modern people. But now that Lin Xian said it, he also realized something was wrong. Yes. If it is really like what Lin Xian said. If modern people go back to ancient times, wouldn't that be a biological weapon? How could the people who lived with him in that village survive? How to answer this question? Didn't I travel through time at all? Yu Huan found it difficult to accept this fact. Because those 5 years of experience were too real. It was so real that he felt like he was actually living with a group of ancient people. In order to survive, he even fought with wild beasts. How could it be all fake? 5 years ago, someone called the police about a thief in the scenic spot. I went to investigate. Yu Huan said slowly and calmly, when I arrived at Sheng Shui Temple, I felt dizzy. Dizziness. Lin Xian frowned. Sudden dizziness, no one is approaching you. No, I remember it very clearly. How could I forget the experience of time travel? Yu Huan was very sure. When I woke up again, feeling very weak, I found myself in a village, being watched by a group of people wearing animal skins. Later, they spoke some strange words, which seemed to be the local dialect, but they were barely understandable and very strange. Through conversation, I found that they are all kind-hearted. They are a group of mountain people living in the mountains. Their ancestors have never left the mountains for generations. And their farm tools all look ancient, and they also have some wooden weapons, just like a group of primitive people. However, they seem to be accustomed to this kind of life. They do farm work and hunting during the day, and a group of people gather together to talk at night. But I couldn't stand it, because I felt like I had traveled to ancient times. This kind of thing was really terrible, and I didn't even dare to say it to them. Later, I gradually got used to that kind of life and taught them to make some simple tools. I also taught them to make weapons and taught those children how to read. Slowly, they also respected me very much and asked their children to worship me as their teacher. Just like this, day by day, month by month, year by year passed by. I've been looking for flaws in them, and I've been trying to figure out how to get out of that mountain. However, I didn't find anything on them. They were too normal, as if they were really ancient people, or primitive people. Some wild beasts often appear in the mountains. Normal people are completely unable to fight those wild beasts. It is no different from seeking death. I was very desperate at the time. If I hadn't longed to return to modern times, I might have chosen to commit suicide because it was really too painful. You simply can't imagine that in a world without entertainment, without the internet, without familiar appliances, and without normal food, it is simply too difficult for human beings to survive, and it will drive a modern person crazy. Until that day. Yu Huan's eyes were so bright that it was scary. I suddenly fell asleep. When I woke up, I found that I was surrounded by people again, many, modern people. I have returned to the holy water temple. Lin Xian stared at Yu Huan. His eyes and expressions were very complicated. Through Yu Huan's words, he has discovered countless anomalies. There is a movie that I don't know if you have seen. Lin Xian stared into his eyes, The Truman Show. Most people should have seen this movie. The story tells the story of a person who has lived in a man-made world since he was a child. Everything he sees is a prop. All the people he saw were actors. He was the only one who didn't know that he was living in a false photo studio, being broadcast live every day. Yu Huan was stunned. Of course he's seen the movie. But when he recalled those 5 years of experience, he slowly shook his head. No, it's not fake. Still can't accept it? Lin Xian smiled and said, then let me tell you another story. There was a second-generation rich man who spent his days drinking and hanging out in nightclubs because he was too rich. Not only does he like to play with women, but he also likes to bully others. One day, his father finally couldn't stand it anymore. He came up with a way to create a slave society, fake. The father hired countless actors to put on a big show. Send your own son into this world. The rich second generation thought they had traveled through time, and suffered setbacks and hardships there. It finally got better. However, this is a movie. A movie that only appeared in 2019. This is 2016. So Lin Xian couldn't tell Yu Huan. It can only be told in the form of a story. When Yu Huan heard this story, he was stunned. Is there such a thing? Do you think you're awesome just because you're a police officer? Lin Xian stared into his eyes. If you are facing a group of professional actors, are you sure you can see through them? Actors are actors because they are proficient in acting. Don't look down on actors. There are billions of people in this world. Why are there only a handful of actors? Do you really think anyone can make a living as an actor? Those real actors are also top-notch in the industry. Yu Huan had nothing to say. But he still couldn't figure it out. Who could act with him for 5 years in that environment? Who can do it, and who can stand it? Then let me continue to ask you a few questions. Lin Xian asked coldly, have you ever seen ancient people get sick? Yu Huan was stunned and shook his head. What is the height of those ancient adults? Lin Xian continued to ask. Women, between 155-170. Yu Huan thought for a while. Men, about 165-180. Then do you know that according to the findings of archaeologists, ancient people were generally short? Lin Xian sneered, and the heights you mentioned are basically the standards of modern people. Yu Huan's face changed completely. Some pale, some confused, and angry. Was he deceived? And now, 3 doubts have emerged. Modern people's viruses, birth, aging, illness and death, height. Why didn't Zhou and the others think of it? Some things can't be thought of immediately. The same arithmetic problem in the IQ contest. Why can some people figure it out, but others can't? If Lin Xian didn't say these doubts, How many people would have thought of it? It's like, there are many white line scars on your left index finger. Have you noticed it on weekdays? Except for left-handed people, everyone has it. But what Lin Xian can't understand is, how did Yu Huan and those people disappear, and how did they appear? The unknown is the most terrifying. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 266. The sun is shining brightly outside the holy water temple. Lin Xian stared coldly at the temple in front of him. There are many holy water temples across the country. But the temple in front of you is very hidden, and few travelers are lucky enough to discover it. At this time, the entire temple was completely blocked by armed police. All temple personnel are under supervision. There are police, special departments, and even some experts who are exploring the entire temple to detect any anomalies. Confirmed. Zhou Lai came to Lin Xian and handed the cigarette diligently. Maybe in terms of position, he is better than his younger brother. In terms of ability, he is Lin Xian's younger brother. Now I am still begging others to do things, so it is necessary to be more diligent. Lin Xian took the cigarette and put it in his mouth. After Zhou Lai lit it, he took a puff and said, "Fake." Zhou Lai's expression changed, but there was not much surprise. From beginning to end, they never believed in time travel. Only those experts believe it, and those experts want to study it. Sometimes when these experts speak, the country will not be stingy. Various grants are made to conduct research. Don't think that the country is a fool. But this is true for countries all over the world. Everyone knows the principle of casting a wide net to catch big fish. For example, 100 scientific research projects. As long as one succeeds, the country will prosper. How did the so-called rapid technological changes come about? Most countries spend money to do this. The first computer, the internet, rockets, nuclear bombs, it's all like that. What's going on with those people? There was a cold glint in Zhou Lai's eyes. He was asking about the ancient people. Two possibilities. Lin Xian exhaled a puff of smoke. The first type is an actor. The second type is that even those ancients don't know that they are not actually ancients. Zhou Lai. He can understand the first one. But the second kind, what does it mean? There is such a case recorded in the criminal investigation history of the Dragon Kingdom, the Savage case. Lin Xian explained, in order to escape the war, a group of people fled into the mountains of virgin forests and lived there for more than 210 years. However, human beings are too weak in front of nature. The few hundred people at that time spent this time more than 200 years later, only 2 descendants were left, and they became savages who had adapted to life in the wild. Got it, Zhou Lai suddenly understood. Lin Xian's words were like lightning striking into his mind, bursting with inspiration. That's right, this kind of person has no idea what's going on in the outside world. Even they themselves don't know what kind of people they are. If even they themselves consider themselves ancients, how can others discover the flaw? Based on my many years of experience as a keyboard warrior and the knowledge gained from street stall literature, Lin Xian smiled and said, I am more inclined to be an actor. Zhou Lai. The little brother's saucy words made his scalp numb. After thinking for a while, he continued to ask, what do you think it is? The question was about this incident. Before doing anything, people need to have a purpose. Lin Xian said, criminals are not fools. They commit crimes for a purpose, such as profit. The word interest is easy to understand. Money, power, lust, honor, love and hatred. Is love and hatred also interests? He. A person is cuckolded, shouting that the other person is betrayed and angry. To put it bluntly, what you think belongs to you has been usurped by others and your interests have been harmed. It's like someone took your money and threw it in the poop. It would be a pity not to pick it up, but it would be disgusting to pick it up. Joe Lai fell into deep thought. Because he couldn't figure out what if someone specially designed a time travel. And he had been planning it for many years, and he even didn't hesitate to kill people for it. What benefits can the other party get from it? Just because we haven't thought of it yet, doesn't mean it hasn't happened. Lin Xian also had a headache. The unknown is the most worrying thing. He always felt that this incident was becoming more and more terrifying. Because Lin Xian himself could not kill a soldier silently without leaving any traces. It was impossible for others to see how the soldier was killed, and even the forensic doctor could not come up with the results of the autopsy. This is a bit scary. Autopsy room. Lin Xian looked at the body taken out of the freezer with a solemn expression. He raised his hand and performed a military salute. This is respect for the deceased. The other party is a soldier. Generally speaking, an autopsy can confirm the cause of death based on the current condition of the deceased's body, histopathology, physical examination, and other methods. A forensic doctor stood next to Lin Xian and talked eloquently. If the cause of death is uncertain, a comprehensive autopsy is required, including histology and toxicology tests. After comprehensive testing by our side, the deceased's physical manifestations were only organ failure, and it was a natural organ failure. The deceased was in the prime of life and there was no possibility of such natural organ failure leading to death. We also tried to learn more about the deceased's life experience, medical history, family history, etc. to no avail. We even investigated through molecular biology, molecular genetics, and forensic psychology, to no avail. The medical examiner sighed, the cause of death is unknown, it's too weird. Lin Xian's expression was solemn. Forensic medicine is a profession that can make the dead speak. Even they couldn't find the answer, which shows how strange the death of the deceased was. Is there any way to kill someone silently without leaving any clues? Lin Xian turned his head and looked at the forensic doctor. This. The forensic doctor knew what Lin Xian was asking and explained, there are many ways, but there will be some traces. As long as you have enough experience, you can still find abnormalities. The deceased in front of you showed no trace. In your opinion, what probably caused the death? Lin Xian continued to ask. Poison, and it's not a common poison. I mean the kind of factor that can cause death. The forensic doctor said without hesitation, it's a factor that none of us has seen and can't detect. Only this way can cause a person's organ failure without us discovering it. Lin Xian pondered for a moment, where does this kind of poison usually appear? Many aspects. The forensic doctor thought for a while. Some laboratory chemicals, elements, radioactive substances, meteorites, and unknown minerals may cause this kind of death, and the cause cannot be found. Because we don't understand some things, we can't detect it at all. It's like many people think that picking up a meteorite is a good thing. Little do you know that some meteorites can kill you in a minute, and the cause of death cannot be found. Lin Xian still remembers a laboratory accident in his previous life. Everyone in the entire laboratory got cancer, but the cause could not be found. But the words of the forensic doctor made Lin Xian's eyes shine. In other words, is there a way to kill a soldier silently without leaving any trace? This method must be hidden in the holy water temple area, right? Why do you say that? Because the soldier and the other 5 experts disappeared in the holy water temple. They suddenly appeared again a day later and turned into corpses. How far can they run in one day? No, they couldn't run at all, and they didn't run. The means to kill the soldiers and experts. In the holy water temple. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 267. When Lin Xian returned to Shengshui Temple again, the team members have gathered in front of them. Everyone looked unhappy because nothing was found. It can be said that the entire Songsu temple was plowed. Nothing unusual. Lin Xian was not surprised by this. The state launched an investigation, and the investigation lasted for half a year, but no cause was found. They can find it when they come up, which is a bit mysterious. Lin Xian looked at Zhou Lai, who was standing aside. Give me the investigation report. What he wants is the missing soldier report. Takeo will definitely investigate, and he will investigate very carefully. Like, if the J-20 pilot is missing, then the entire Air Force base is probably bombed. Every soldier is no less valuable than a fighter pilot. Zhou Lai hesitated a little. He took out his cell phone, pulled out a report and handed it to Lin Xian. The reason for hesitation is that there are too many secrets in the soldiers. For example, chips. For example, some special pistols actually have chips. Keep a record of the gun owner's use. The guns used by special branch personnel and national security special agents are all of this kind. Another example is that some fighter jets and pilots all have chips. Record something and prevent something. Something happened to the fighter jet, or something happened to some people. Can be controlled remotely, to destroy. Don't leave something to the enemy. This kind of cruel side is rarely known to ordinary people and will never be seen. Soldiers also have this chip on their bodies. Record the soldier's daily routine, tasks, and action trajectories, and locate the soldier's positions. Lin Xian knew this because he killed several foreign soldiers last time. I only found out after watching the autopsy performed by professionals. What people usually think of as high-tech products are products they only see in movies. As everyone knows, it has already been applied in reality. Can be used by civilians. No one knows how many generations or even dozens of generations it is. When Lin Xian read the investigation report on the soldiers in his hand, he was stunned. All reports point to one point. The location of the soldiers disappeared from the surveillance. The missing location is Songsuji Temple. Disappear into thin air. Signal interference or blocking. Putting down the phone, Lin Xian asked. Shield. Zhou Lai's expression was solemn and so incredible. It means that someone appeared next to Zhang Bing at that time. Shielded the chips on the soldiers, and then controlled the soldiers. Isn't it incredible? That's a soldier. In terms of combat power alone, each one of them is more powerful than the King of War, and comparable to the God of War of the past era. Besides a monster like Lin Xian, who can do it? Even I can't do it. It will leave traces. Facing Zhou Lai's gaze, Lin Xian shook his head, but it's not impossible, if there is assistance. Assistant, Zhou Lai was confused. Poison. Lin Xian recalled what the forensic doctor said to him in the autopsy room, an unknown factor. Someone came close to the soldiers and blocked the signal. Waiting for an opportunity to poison, knock down the soldiers, and then take them away. Wrong. Zhou Lai shook his head. It was during the day when the soldiers disappeared. Anyone can get close to the soldiers. If you want to poison yourself in front of the soldiers, that's ridiculous. Let's go take a look first. Lin Xian walked into the holy water temple. A group of people followed him. Outside a temple building, there is a small bluestone square in front of the warning tape. Lin Xian looked around and finally looked at the ground. This is the place where the soldier disappeared. After observing for a while, Lin Xian walked through the warning zone. Slowly squat down and take another closer look. Finally, he lay down directly on the ground, not even leaving the cracks in the bricks and stones. The investigation lasted about half an hour. Sudden. Tweezers. Lin Xian remained motionless and raised his hand. Team member Zhao Deshan opened the criminal investigation toolkit, took out a small tweezers, and handed it over. Lin Xian took the tweezers and stretched them into a stone crevice. Then he carefully picked out a small particle. In other words, it is a soft crystal object. Lin Xian brought the tweezers closer and carefully observed the soft crystal, which was not much larger than the tip of a needle. His super strength allowed him to discover that this jelly-like crystal was in a broken state. It should be separated from some kind of object with a small amount of moisture inside. It seems to be a kind of foam. Forensic Dr. Lin Xian shouted. A forensic doctor came quickly. Test it and see what it is. Lin Xian handed over the tweezers. The forensic doctor's eyesight was not as good as his, and it took him a long time to see clearly what was on the tweezers. Get out a mini terrarium. Then carefully put the crystals into the glass container. Lin Xian continued to search. In a gap, this jelly-like crystal object was found again. After 10 minutes, the forensic doctor raised his head from the portable mini microscope, looked at Lin Xian with a strange expression, and said one word: sodium polyacrylate cross-linked copolymer. Lin Xian? Everyone? What the hell? That is. The forensic doctor looked dumbfounded. A kind of puffed substance, which will expand when exposed to water and take on a jelly-like shape, but it is harder than jelly. It is commonly found in the kind of water bombs used in toy water guns, water-absorbing bombs. Everyone looked at each other. Lin Xian asked, if it is other liquids, can it also be allowed to expand? This. The forensic doctor was stunned and nodded. It should be possible. This kind of substance can generally absorb most liquids and expand. Understood. Lin Xian stood up and said, prepare a water gun and water-absorbing bombs. About an hour. The team members found water bomb guns, got water, and soaked the water bombs. Lin Xian held the gun, looked at Zhou Lai, and pointed to the place where the soldier disappeared. You stand here. Zhou Lai. Still standing in that position honestly. Watching Lin Xian walk away with the gun. Sudden. A crystal water bomb flew through the air, landed on Zhou Lai's face, and exploded. Zhou Lai. He turned to look at Lin Xian, who was hiding behind a big tree 5 meters away. What do you mean? We want to sense danger because some people are releasing murderous intent towards us. Lin Xian walked closer and looked at the tiny water bombs that shattered on the ground. But if the other party has no killing intent and attacks us, even the soldiers will not be able to sense it, right? Zhou Lai's face changed drastically. He understood what Lin Xian meant. If someone uses a water bomb gun, they use some water bombs that absorb unknown liquid. Attack them. They really can't detect it? Suppose that the liquid absorbed by these water bombs contains intoxicating substances or poisons. Are you being tricked by attacking you from a distance? If this is the case, you don't need to get close to the soldiers at all, and you can knock them down. At least 2 people committed the crime. Lin Xian looked at the water gun in his hand. One person held a tool similar to a water gun and attacked the soldiers. The other person quickly approached the soldiers, blocked the signal, and took away the place where the soldiers were hidden. It's not too far from here. He raised his head and looked around. Right here. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 268. Everyone started a carpet search. Another half-day passed and nothing was achieved. Lin Xian personally checked around and found nothing unusual. This situation is the most frightening. You know there's a problem here, but you just can't find it? It's like seeing a ghost. It's a dead end. Lin Xian raised his head and looked at the slowly darkening sky. That's what criminal investigation is. What is discovered is called a case solved. If you can't find out, that's suspense. Some mysteries are scary for a reason. The scary thing is not the case itself. It's an unknown method used by the bad guys. Don't you want to see those people in the temple? Zhou Lai asked. It's no use. Lin Xian shook his head. People who can lay out such a plan have even higher IQs than us. There will be no problems with the people in the temple, and there will be no problems with the suspects you can find. Awesome, Zhou Lai nodded. Indeed. All the suspects they found were indeed what Lin Xian said. No problem. That's why it's so damn scary. Except supernatural. No one could think of any other way to do it. Did you bring the drone? Lin Xian looked at Wang Meng. Wang Meng nodded. The team members took out a small drone and took off. Lin Xian held a tablet computer and looked at it from a bird's eye view. View the entire holy water temple from top to bottom. Time passed by minute. No one bothered him. Lin Xian controlled the drone and searched all suspicious places that could take away a person. Lower the flatbed lift. Lin Xian frowned and murmured, my speed calculation ability is a bit low. The flaw is right in front of you. If it were him, how would he disguise himself? Lin Xian looked at his feet and shook his head. Not escape. So flying? Lin Xian raised his head again and looked at the sky. Everyone in Tico checked it out. If some flying objects appear that day, they will definitely not be missed. Wait, Lin Xian looked around again. Is it a side problem? The drone's perspective is only looking at the Songsu temple. They could only see the inside of the temple. So, Lin Xian threw the tablet to Wang Meng aside. Squat halfway and assume a starting position. Everyone? What is he going to do? Moment. Lin Xian ran up and rushed to the temple not far away. He jumped up instantly and jumped more than 3 meters high. Everyone. Damn it, 3 meters. They watched Lin Xian grab the eaves and use his palms to lend strength. As nimble as a civet cat, it jumped onto the 5-meter roof. What a monster, Zhou Lai's eyelids were twitching. Lin Xian stood on the roof and looked around. Sudden. His eyes were fixed on a telegraph pole in the distance. Slowly moving his eyes, Lin Xian looked around. 30 meters away, a telephone pole was discovered again. The two telephone poles are about 10 meters high, 30 meters apart. All are taller than the temple buildings of 5 to 6 meters. Lin Xian's brain was spinning rapidly. Is it them? The next moment, he jumped from the roof and ran towards the nearest telephone pole. What was discovered? Everyone was a little confused. Follow Lin Xian and run out of the holy water temple. Together we came to a cement telephone pole. About 12 meters. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes and ejected instantly. Climb on telephone poles like a gecko. Until it reached a position of about 9 meters. Observe carefully. Soon, the corners of Lin Xian's mouth raised, revealing a cold smile. Found it? A crane comes. Zhou Lai and others sat on the boom basket and slowly approached the telephone pole. Look through a magnifying glass. Certain fibers can be found in some places on the poles. These fibers should come from ropes. The materials of ropes are mostly hemp, cotton, brown, silk, etc. If it is scratched by an object, some fibers will be left on the object. Rope. Zhou Lai looked puzzled and looked at Lin Xian. I don't understand the use of finding this. 30 meters away, there is a telephone pole. Lin Xian pointed to the distance. The 30-meter straight line happens to pass through the area where the soldier disappeared. What if there was a rope connected at both ends? After bringing the soldier down, can we use this rope to put him down? Did he take him away quietly without leaving any traces? Everyone's expressions changed drastically. This is bullshit, of course. Not only can it be taken away, but it can also create the illusion of a person disappearing out of thin air. This is why no one can find any trace of the missing soldier. The mystery is revealed. It shouldn't be that simple. Lin Xian narrowed his eyes. At least a gang committed the crime, no less than 4 people, and they carried some special equipment. Otherwise, If you want to catch a big living person high in the sky, it is absolutely impossible with just one or two people. After killing the person, one day later, I guess they used the same method to send the body to the original location, creating the illusion of disappearing out of thin air and appearing out of thin air. The place where the 5 experts disappeared. Jolie frowned and looked around. There are no telephone poles. Isn't it stupid? Lin Xian was amused by his brother. Where are you standing now? Jolie was stunned, looked at his feet, and suddenly realized, crane. Right. Lin Xian nodded. As long as there is a telegraph pole, the other party can use a crane instead. It is even possible that the 5 experts were taken away directly by the boom basket, without even using ropes. Everyone's expressions changed again. The boom of the crane is about 35-45 meters. It is indeed possible to reach into the temple. It's not impossible to commit crimes using a crane's boom. Unfortunately, this can no longer be checked. 5 experts have been missing for several months now. The only thing that can be checked is the use of telephone poles and ropes to transport people. The Special Criminal Case Task Force and the Special Branch began investigating. Lin Xian and Jolie returned to Shengshui Temple and stood in the dark night. You are really awesome. Jolie was convinced. Can you find such clues? How could a normal person think of these means of committing a crime? It's no use. Lin Xian's face was gloomy. Even if we find this clue, we can only decipher how they disappeared and reappeared. The point is, the place where Yu Huan lived for 5 years. Jolie nodded. Indeed, that is the most troublesome thing. A village surrounded by mountains and forests, and countless beasts. Is there really such a place in the Dragon Kingdom without being discovered? Is it possible that it is a man-made village? Lin Xian's expression gradually became weird. Well. Jolie was confused for a while. Are you kidding me? How to build something in such a large area? I also hope I'm joking. Lin Xian's expression was cold. What if it's true? Even if it's true. Jolie asked the key point. Why did the other party spend so much manpower and material resources? Yeah, what are they for? Lin Xian's expression gradually became confused. I hate this kind of intellectual game the most. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 269. 6 a.m. The air has a hint of coolness, as if it can penetrate people's heart and lungs. The whole city is shrouded in haze. A person in the temple saw someone climbing a telephone pole on the day the soldier disappeared. Pu Wenhui took a confession and said, at that time, he thought it was the person who was repairing the power grid and didn't pay attention. I went to do the autopsy again and found something abnormal. Lu Changjiang looked indifferent. We found signs of excess cyclosporin and epinephrine in the body of the deceased. Although these two hormones are secreted by the human body, if they are excessively high, they can increase myocardial contractility, lead to organ lesions, and organ failure. The test results of the fibers on the telephone poles came out, and they were indeed from ropes. Ge Yanghui reported, through overnight visits and investigations, we found that the day before Zhan Bing's accident, someone bought a bundle of ropes and sliding hooks about 50 meters long in a hardware store. Follow the team members' reports one by one. Clues emerge one after another. Criminal investigation is like this. As long as you find one clue, you can dig out countless clues. Lin Xian was watching a surveillance video at this time. Internal surveillance video of a hardware store. From the video perspective, a young man is being filmed. This young man was the one who bought a 50-meter rope that day. But there was something wrong with Lin Xian's expression. His eyes stared at the young man's body movements. Zhou Lai's eyes were also staring at the young man on the video, his eyes cold. They found that the young man's movements were unusual. The walking posture, gait, and body shape are not movements that normal people have. It seems that he has received some extremely professional training. Just like a soldier, his walking posture is steady and his body movements are coordinated. Regardless of standing, sitting, lying, waist, or chest, there is a clear difference from ordinary people. The young man in the video is not a soldier. But he definitely has some special training. This man should be an expert in using guns and close combat. Guo Su, who was also watching the surveillance, had a solemn expression. When he walked, his waist was slightly bent, not because of his hunchback. It was a posture of alertness and explosiveness. His left hand drooped slightly and never left his waist. It was also a gesture of alertness and explosiveness at the same time, the habit of drawing a gun. Look, no matter how much he swings his left hand, it never leaves his waist more than 10 centimeters. Once you are attacked, you can take out the weapon in your waist as quickly as possible, whether it is a knife or a pistol. And his pupils are always moving, either to the left or to the right every 2 seconds. This is a warning that will not give anyone an opportunity. If you cooperate with his hands, he can pull out a gun or knife within 1 to 2 seconds, and make anyone pay the heaviest price. Lin Xian and Zhou Lai's expressions did not change. Shock appeared on the faces of the other team members. Not a soldier. Guo Su shook his head. I can't tell who he is. Lin Xian and Zhou Lai looked at each other and thought of a possibility. Killer. But if it was a killer, it would be more terrifying. A killer with systematic training can only be a killer organization. Otherwise, where would such specialized training be needed? And through the young people's walking posture, gait, and movements. The young man's defensive posture was imprinted in his bones like eating and drinking. This cannot be trained in a short time. If it's not more than 5 years, don't even think about it. If it's a killer, Lin Xian looked at Zhou Lai, it seems that the more he plays, the bigger he gets. Zhou Lai nodded, his expression ugly. Time travel, villages, killings, another suspected killer appeared in front of him. Isn't it just that the more you play, the bigger you get? Fortunately, Lin Xian discovered the clues and found the young man. No, it's not just this young man. According to Lin Xian's inference, this was a gang crime. At least 4 people, maybe more. Whatever it is. Lin Xian pointed to the young man under surveillance and said, find out. Zhang Zhaoyang took out his laptop and entered the large database. Face comparison. As a result, Zhang Zhaoyang was confused, not from the Dragon Kingdom. Because the young man's information was not found in the Longguo Identity Information Database. No facial information of the young man was found. Wrong. Lin Xian clicked to pause the video. Rewind and continue playing. After playing it in a loop for more than 10 times. A sneer appeared on his face, there was something wrong with his face. There was no facial expression. It looked like a dead face. Silicone mask. Li Long said solemnly, I used to catch spies in the National Security Bureau, and I encountered face-changing makeup techniques and silicone masks. The so-called silicone mask is actually a very special simulation mask. By 3D simulating the human face and fitting it on the face, it can be lifelike. As long as you don't come into contact with some people for a long time, you can't tell whether it's a fake face just by looking at it. Spies also use this method to fool some cameras and face scanning and other tools. Everyone's hearts sank. If this is the case, if the other person changes his face again, how can you find him? There is a way. Wang Meng spoke, stretched out his hand, and pointed at the legs of the young man in the video. Look, this young man has bow legs. Bow legs, the so-called O-shaped legs, means that the feet are naturally upright, and the knees are not close together, or there is even a big gap. With information such as height, body shape, and bow legs, it is difficult to find a person, but it is not impossible. What's more, not only is there surveillance video inside the hardware store, but there is also city Skynet surveillance outside the store. Through surveillance video tracking and body shape, it is likely to be found. Find it out. Lin Xian gave an order and reminded, don't do it after you find it, I will come when the time comes. Since it is suspected that the other party may be a killer. Except Guo Su, the team members are almost all ordinary people, and casualties are likely to occur. Ordinary police fighting professional killers is no different from sending themselves to death. This is a fact. They just have one more police gun than ordinary people. Facing the killer's fancy killing methods, the mortality rate is also very high. Don't I need to dispatch some people? Zhou Lai looked at the backs of the team members leaving. War soldiers. Lin Xian shook his head, catch some small mosquitoes, no cannons are needed. A few days ago, a war soldier died, that was intentional. Don't talk about war soldiers. Some time ago, Lin Xian himself was almost killed by several soldiers on the freighter. But it was different with preparation. If he couldn't solve it, it would be useless to send soldiers over. Lin Xian's current problem was not these. A few small killers were not worth wasting his brain cells. His current thoughts were all on the mysterious village. Lin Xian stood up and said to Zhou Lai, let's go see Yu Huan again. If you want to find that mysterious village, you can only start with Yu Huan. Solving the case is a little bitter, but my sister is super sweet. Author, Kisiun Zhong. Chapter 270. House, living room. Lin Xian and Zhou Lai sat on the sofa and looked at Yu Huan, who brought mineral water. Drink some water. Yu Huan sat down with a smile, his face still showed an indescribable decadence. Are you still not used to it after being back for so long? Lin Xian asked with a smile. Yes. Yu Huan nodded. It's like a person who has lived in the countryside for a long time and suddenly enters a modern metropolis. Everything becomes unfamiliar. It's like being out of touch with this era, and the whole person is at a loss. Zhou Lai on the side nodded. Don't talk about living in a backward place for 5 years. Like a soldier. Join the army for 3 to 5 years and then get out of the army. There will also be this illusion, feeling out of touch with the times. What do you want to ask this time? Yu Huan's personality is relatively cheerful, and he knows that Lin Xian and the others don't go to the Three Treasures Hall for anything. The question you ask must also be related to the mysterious village. Detail. Lin Xian didn't talk nonsense, I want to know all the details inside and outside that village. You have also worked as a police officer. I told you last time that the village should be fake and the villagers should be a group of actors, we must now find that village. Don't think this is a small thing. A mysterious village is hidden in the Dragon Kingdom. It's like there is a group of terrorists hiding in the crowd. There is no telling when a terrorist attack will be launched. The mysterious village must be found. If it cannot be found, it will be comparable to a bomb that may be detonated at any time. It's so scary. Everything there is indeed true. I have inspected the houses in the village and they are all old, at least several decades. There are also big trees outside the village. Some trees must have taken hundreds of years to get that big. Those beasts are very wild and cannot be the product of breeding. By the way, there is also an ancient well. The moss in the well is also many years old, at least more than 100 years. Lin Xian and Zhou Lai were both listening to Yu Huan's story quietly. No detail is missed. In order to find out the truth, Yu Huan also took great pains to check everything he could. But the results he found out made him even more desperate. Because the inside and outside of that village were so real. It's so real that you can't tell it's acted at all. This is like a big tree that is over 100 years old. How to act? Ancient wells, houses, Wild beasts, how to act. As Yu Huan narrated, Lin Xian and Zhou Lai felt chills running down their spines. The more I listened, the more something was wrong. Because there are some things that you really can't act out. But do the Long Kingdom really have these things that Yu Huan said? Don't talk about the Dragon Kingdom, maybe it's abroad. Some tigers, bears, and some wolves native to the Dragon Kingdom. It may not be available abroad. Some animals, such as Siberian tigers and Siberian wolves, are too iconic. Sudden. Lin Xian was stunned for a moment. Wait a minute, Siberian tiger and Northwest wolf? There is a jingle. Siberian tigers and Northwest wolves are not as good as the little sheep in Jiangnan. At that time, it was a joke used by the older generation to describe women. But the Siberian tiger and the Siberian wolf belong to two different regions. For example, most Northwest wolves live in harsh environments such as the Gobi Desert. Siberian tigers mostly live in plains and mountain forests. How did species from these two areas appear together? When Lin Xian revealed his findings, Zhou Lai and Yu Huan were also a little confused. This further illustrates that something is wrong with that mysterious village. Then Yu Huan continued. Lin Xian continued to analyze. About 3 hours later. I haven't gone far out of the village. Yu Huan finally said, it's only a few kilometers at most. I have no way of knowing what the situation is outside or where it is. Now it is certain that Yu Huan did not travel through time. It must have been sent somewhere. It is very similar to the mountain jungle in the primitive zone. Subtropical area. Thanks. Lin Xian smiled, what you said is of great help to us. It's useless. Yu Huan smiled bitterly, based on this, we can't even find that village. However, before Lin Xian could continue to say something, the phone suddenly rang. Taking out his cell phone and taking a look at the incoming call, Lin Xian's expression changed. After the connection, Wang Meng's words came, found it? Then, send a positioning. Lin Xian and Zhou Lai left Yu Huan's home immediately. Get in the car and drive all the way. About 40 minutes later, we arrived outside a hotel. After getting off the car, Lin Xian and Zhou Lai got into a commercial car. In the car, Wang Meng, Guo Su, and Li Long were all there. Target found. Wang Meng's voice was cold and he looked at the hotel outside the car window. The suspect is inside, but he is the only one. The suspect is the young man in the hardware store's surveillance video. Wang Meng and others were tracked all the way through the city's Skynet surveillance. The weird thing is, this young man has stayed in the hotel for 8 days. Check the hotel surveillance video. Except for necessary meals out, the young man never left the hotel room. The weird thing is, in the past 3 days, the young man did not even go out to eat. Wang Meng and others suspected that this young man might not be in the hotel anymore. But he did not act on his own. Move the young man? If he moves, it is likely to alert the enemy. If he does not move, he is worried that the young man has already escaped. I'll go. Lin Xian got off the business car and walked towards the hotel. 10 minutes later, Lin Xian, wearing a waiter's uniform, took the elevator and came to the guest room area. Standing in front of a guest room door, listened for half a minute. Lin Xian's face changed, and he did not hear anyone in the guest room. At the same time, he smelled a faint stench. Something happened. Kicked the door open. Lin Xian walked in. The first thing he did was to look at the bathroom. He saw a corpse in a corroded state lying in the bathtub. The stench came from the bathtub filled with water. Moreover, the faucet has not been turned off and is in a water-draining state. Why is this so? Because there is an advantage, the water in the bathtub can be constantly replaced. Water can cover up the stench of the corpse and slow down the spread of the corpse stench. Looking at the degree of decay of the body, Lin Xian judged based on his experience. At least 3 days of death. The team members arrived at the first time, and Lu Changjiang performed an autopsy on the spot. He was murdered. More than 10 minutes later, Lu Changjiang said in a deep voice, it was fake to commit suicide by cutting wrists. The killing method was very professional. Further autopsy is needed to determine the cause of death. It's useless. Lin Xian shook his head, it should be silenced, and the clues are broken. Everyone's heart sank. However, it is precisely because they played a silencer that new clues appeared. Lin Xian sneered, we may not be good at investigating supernatural, but when it comes to investigating murders, it is our strong point. Wang Meng and others laughed one by one. It's like someone pretending to be cool, and pretending to be in the field you are best at. Isn't this just a trick to kill yourself?